Hey everybody, it's George from the Keeper's Hive. I'm really excited today because we are going to show you how we've used the Keeper's Hive with flow frames. So we've actually made a nuke box that holds 3 flow frames and a regular frame, and we put it on the Keeper's Hive about 6 weeks ago. And since it is the first week of July, or almost the first week of July, it's time to do our honey harvest. So I don't know a whole lot about flow frames because I've never used them, but I did have a friend and a fellow beekeeper, Mark, who has a lot of experience using them. So he's with me today to show you guys how to use the flow frames in the Keeper's Hive. And I want you all to notice something. I listened to your comments, right? So if you look at my socks and my pants, they are tucked in today, Dave. Now let's look at Mark's. Mark's got Crocs on today. So Mark
and no socks.
And no socks. So, you know, we like having fun here at the Keeper's Hive, but keep the comments coming because I do read them and they usually are important and I want to share the right way to do this. So today my socks and pants are tucked in. So Mark, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your experience with using the Flow Hive and what we're going to be doing today.
All right, sure. So I started with beekeeping with the Flow Hive. So we were one of the initial Indiegogo crowdfunding backers of the Flow Hive.
9 years ago.
9 years ago, exactly. And didn't do so well because I had never taken a class. So I'll throw that out there. If you're thinking about becoming a beekeeper, definitely join a local club, take the beginner's course, get a mentor, become an apprentice, learn the stuff before you jump right in with both feet and flail like I did for way too long. So George and I were looking at this Keeper's Hive, and I've been a long time beta tester of the Keeper's Hive, probably 6 years or so.
Almost since it started.
Since it started. So I've had the 2 queen keeper as well as the 1 queen keeper. Been very successful with that. And but George and I were looking at this a couple of years ago and said, you know, we could put a Flow Hive on top of this. And it's like, well, yeah, but you got to have a 5-frame nuke. How's that going to fit? So we worked it out, and it turned out we've got 3 flow frames and 1 deep regular frame in there that fits in a quote 5-frame nuke box. So we modified it, customized it a little bit, and I think it works. It works pretty darn well.
And you use the standard 7-frame Flow Super on the 2 queen keeper, right?
Actually, I use a 6-frame.
Okay. You've got to do it differently.
I got to customize because I started with 8-frame equipment, so almost all of my stuff is 8-frame.
Right.
So on a 2 queen keeper, I have an adapter that converts 10-frame to 8-frame.
Got it.
So it necks it down, so I can continue to grow and continue to.
So Mark's an engineer, so he's pretty handy at doing all this modification stuff.
It'd probably been better if I'd been an industrial or mechanical engineer. I'm an electrical guy, so not so much on the
beekeeping stuff.
You know, making things work mechanically. So yeah, we've been doing it a long time, and so I think we should go take a look at this Keeper Hive, and let's go extract some honey. All right, so this is our Flow Hive modified super custom in a nuke box configuration. So there are 3 Flow Hives and 1 deep frame, and that seems to work out the best. You can actually take a drawn frame and put it in that position, and that'll help bring the bees up. The other thing that helps with the Flow Hive is if you put in the keeper configuration, you've got your brood box, you've got your buffer box, and then you've got your exchange box. And so by moving frames up into the exchange box, bees are traveling back and forth, and they kind of look around and go, huh, this might be a good place to put some honey. And sure enough, that's what they do. So that seems to be the better configuration, is to have a box above to help draw the bees up into that flow hive. So what I'm going to do here is take off this. Good catch, thank you. It's a
Yeah,
little
my
windy
head
out here
came in
today.
handy today,
Yeah,
Mark.
today, yeah, you're using your head,
I'm
George.
using my head today.
Yeah. So what I have is a ball jar with a 1-inch inside diameter tube, which plugs into the flow hive's spigot. And on windy days, it's really helpful because if you have the honey flowing down through the spigot and then pouring in the open into the jar, it gets blown around a little bit. The other thing it does is it keeps the bees from getting in your honey. So I'll start by popping this cap off.
Do you remember which that frame?
Yep, that's the frame. And so I have, and also for those that are not familiar with the flow hive, you'll notice there's a lip on this little tube here. And that lip is really important to be in and down. It has to be down because there is a place where
you gotta bee in
get the
your
bees out of there.
tube.
A couple of bees, I opened it, and then bees went in and said, "Hey, what's in there?" Because they're very curious.
And we're kind of approaching the dearth here, so we know that the bees are out there looking for any drop of honey they can find right now.
Exactly. So I'm going to take this top piece out, and that top piece is notched. It has a little notch here so that when you turn the key, you can't put this back in until you reset the frames into the proper position. And we'll show you. You can look that up on the Flow Hive website. That what the configuration is. So I could take this key and put it all the way in and try to turn it. I'll probably knock the hive over.
Okay.
Because what happens is the cells are lined up like this, and when you turn the key, it cranks one side of that entire frame. It cranks it up like this, and when it does that, it breaks the seal, and the honey flows to the back. There's a lot of wax in there that's holding it all together. So what I normally do is I'll go in a couple of inches and do the first turn and crack that seal, and I'll let it sit for a moment before I turn the next one.
And Mark, you still, even with the flow frames, you want to make sure you're extracting capped honey, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So,
yeah. If you could, I mean, realistically, you can extract not uncapped honey as
right.
long as it's honey.
Right.
And how do you know that? Well, you can go in with a little dropper, go into the uncapped cell, and pull some out and check with a hydrometer what the percentage of the water is, which is kind of.
But before we started, we did take a look at the flow frames.
We looked at the flow frames. They're
to make
mostly
sure that
capped.
they were mainly capped.
Yeah.
So it's something that you want to do, or make sure you check the moisture content of the honey after it comes out. I really, some people have a lot of challenges with the flow super of getting the bees to work it. So the ability to put an extra drawn comb into that box and the ability to put that box in between where the bees are traveling will definitely help the bees accept the frames and use them. So I'm just
So we forgot the modification in this to keep to not give the bees an entrance here. So they're, I know on the one that I'm using, I put a little like a little frame around it so they can't get out. So there's a little entrance here. Normally you can do this without a suit or anything, but this is kind of a busy yard and the dearth, as George previously mentioned.
And then we did prop this hive up a little bit in the back so that we're gonna have the honey flowing downhill.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff flows downhill, right, Mark?
There's a lot of stuff that flows downhill.
So, Mark, how do you know when you've turned it enough?
Well, it only when you turn the key, it breaks the cells.
Okay.
And so you can only turn it to that point.
Okay.
So when you
Does it kind of stop and you sort of feel like
well, yeah, I mean, if grab that and give it a twist,
you,
so you can feel it. You can go all the way around. It's not doing anything more than it's already done.
okay.
Yeah, and then
So now we just sort of
we're kind of waiting for the honey to flow out. I'm going to give it a. I'm going to normal it back up. This is also a technique I've used in the past where I put the key in. You know, once that frame is broken apart,
mhm.
it's going to flow. And
Okay.
it's not like a spigot where you turn it on and you can turn it back off. No, this is
You just wait until it all flows out.
yeah, it all flows out. So
We'll just be patient
yeah,
and we'll cut the video.
yeah. All right, so now we're back. You can see that we have done a couple of minor adjustments to the configuration. And in doing that, unfortunately, we had the tubes came out, so bees went in, and so we do have a bee that's crawling around there. We'll rescue her out in a little bit. It is a cool day here in Pennsylvania. It started at about 65 degrees, and so this particular box was not quite as warm as you would want it to be when you're extracting off a flow hive. We also put a little bit more of a tilt in it. That's another lesson in a normal hive configuration. You want it to be bottom down, tail up, so that if water gets in, like a rainstorm, like we had a massive thunderstorm last night, and so that the water will run out of the hive, not into the hive. Same kind of thing applies with the keeper's hive. Depending if you have a side entrance or a front entrance, the hive that we're dealing with here has a front entrance, so it would normally have a slight front tilt, but in this case, we needed to have a side tilt to get the honey to flow out properly. So that's why you see some kind of wonky looks to it. Um, these frames were not completely full. They were capped. Probably half of each side was capped, maybe a little bit more than half. Um, and so by giving it the twist, you're turning the spigot on. Unlike a normal spigot, when you turn the flow hive on, when you give that crank, uh, it's basically an all or nothing. So if you've got a half-gallon jar there, you can actually overfill it. If you've got a full frame, you can actually overfill it, because I have done that in the past. So you kind of want to keep an eye on it. As it gets full, be ready with an empty jar to swap it over. If you're using quart jars or liter jars, you absolutely need to have extra uh, jars available, ready to be moving them around.
I mean, I think, Mark, I think this is brilliant. This idea of using the 1.25 inch plastic
Tubing, yeah,
tubing that's connecting your flow hive uh,
spigot or
spigot
whatever, yeah,
down to your jar is brilliant. So you're not getting any bees in there. You can watch the honey just kind of flow down like a
yep,
slide into your mason jar. So no bees are getting in.
yeah. You can see a lot of bees around here trying to get in because they can smell that honey. I will say that for a backyard beekeeper, this combination is I think ideal. I do an investment to purchase the flow hive, or a couple of frames for a flow hive. I bought the keeper hive, but what do I not have to buy? I don't have to buy a honey extractor, a decapping knife, a just a ton of other equipment to make this thing work. I can put it in the bottles. If I'm using it for my personal use, I might leave it in my half-gallon bottles. But it's also really easy to take these bottles to pour them into other bottles, into one pounders or 8 ounces or whatever. So pretty straightforward to get that all done. And you can see as the temperature when we started this was was under 70.
It was definitely
And
cool.
yeah, and now it's up to about 75. And you can actually see the honey starting to flow a little bit faster. You can see the bottles, even short period of time
I've
we've
never
been
heard them
filming.
talk about that, Mark, but it kind of makes sense not to extract your flow frames first thing in the morning,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
we chose to do today.
We chose to do that, not thinking about. I mean,
Because
two
surely,
days ago, yesterday, it was 85 degrees at 9 o'clock.
surely the honey will flow faster when it's warmer. And why you're Dave? Come here. Why you're extracting your honey? You can be watching your bees with the keeper's hive. So just look at that beautiful brood chamber, just completely filled of bees. Like I said, that's what you want. So you got lots of bees, you got lots of honey, and are you having fun, Mark?
Yeah,
And we're having fun. We're not doing any lifting.
I'd be having more fun if I wore socks.